$25 versus $300. Let's go over some accuracy tests as well as some pros and cons of each one. I let the Chargemaster Lite warm up for about 30 minutes before starting this test, same as this scale, which I'll brief on here in a second. I calibrated it after warming up and everything. Really, it probably sat around for an hour while I was prepping for this whole video and everything, so plenty of time. So anytime you use any electronic scale, if you don't know, let them warm up for a bit. Don't just turn them on and use them right away. Wait at least 20 minutes. So anyway, I'll be throwing 29 grains of IMR 3031, which is a long stick powder, and I'll be throwing 44 grains of StaBALL 6.5. It's in the name. This is a ball powder, so it should meter very well through almost any powder measure or thrower. And then this one's a long extruded powder, which is quite tricky, especially for drum-based powder measures like this. Starting the test, I loaded up the IMR 3031 into the Chargemaster Lite, and I punched in 29.0 grains. Then I threw 30 charges. After each charge, I would set it down and put it on the platen here, let it stable out, and print it into a spreadsheet, and I did that for every single charge. So, by the way, thanks to Gavin at Ultimate Reloader, also where I work, for letting me borrow this scale. This is the A&D EJ54D lab scale. He did a video on this a while back. It's a pretty awesome scale. While it might be a little overkill for reloading purposes, it is incredibly sensitive. And I wanted to use something to really put these to the test instead of just using a bog standard cheap reloading scale or kitchen scale like you might find online. So anyway, that's why I'm using it. It's a pretty awesome unit. You can find cheaper versions, not of this exact model, but ones that are slightly less sensitive and a little less feature rich for a little bit more affordable. Now onto the Lite powder measure. I also loaded up the IMR 3031 into the hopper, and then I threw about 10 charges because you want this to settle each time you throw a charge. You don't want to load it up, dial it in, and then just start throwing right away. Things need to settle in and munge together a little bit, if you will. So I did 10 discard charges before actually beginning the test. And then for StaBALL, I did the same procedure. Loaded it up, threw 10 charges, discarded them, and then started weighing each one. So basically, I did, of course, the same thing for each. 30 charges for each powder, following procedures that will make sure each of these are going to perform their best. Here are the results. It's quite interesting. The Chargemaster with 3031, so Chargemaster and 3031, had an SD of 0.0463. That's pretty incredible, actually. And then for a long stick powder, the Lite here did a little worse, which is as expected. This one had 0.163 of SD. So 0.163 versus 0.0463. So that is a pretty huge difference. Now, here's where it's interesting for me personally, and with this powder. I use this for my Winchester 3030. So reality is, I don't need even this close to amount of precision for a gun that I like to shoot at steel at maybe up to 100 plus slightly yards, probably no more than 100 yards for me personally. It's not something I'm trying to group with, it's something I'm having fun with. So that tells me that, I probably shouldn't waste time with this one just for some plinking loads and some berries bullets. It performs great, I'm not trying to make it a tack driver. And I have used 3031 through this before, and it's just time consuming. With this, you can fly through charges, like 50 charges, no problem. So switching to StaBALL 6.5. Impressively, both powder measures had great standard deviation numbers. The Chargemaster had 0.0343, so pretty awesome. The Lite had 0.0445. From double checking my numbers, a tenth of a grain off is not bad at all. So that also makes me think, maybe if I just want to hammer out some rounds and not mess with this thing and warming it up and all that fun stuff, just get this one dialed in for some basic precision loads or something. Yeah, not bad. All right, so with 3031, these were about a grain or so difference. So that's not bad. So in other words, this one threw a little bit more accurately with 3031 versus this one. But again, particularly with 3031, that doesn't matter. All right, what are the pros and cons of each? So the pros about this guy is it's cheap. It's cheap and cheap. You can find this street price about $22, $23. MSRP on Lee's website is $29 or basically $30, which is not bad. And if you get a kit like I did, like the kit I started out with, the Lee Challenger Anniversary, something, whatever. Anyway, it was the Lee Challenger kit and it came with this. Then you're not paying much for it at all in the end all of things. Yeah, it's not fancy. The build's entirely plastic, but it works surprisingly well. The adjustment's a little chintzy, but I never used their measurements on here. I've just adjusted it up or down, so more or less until I got where I wanted to be. But yeah, I'm quite impressed with how consistently this through charges, really. I was really surprised. So the other plus side that I can think of is that there are no electronics. This thing works on gravity. And one thing I didn't write down here is when you have this turned off, once you empty this, you cycle some charges through when you're emptying, going to empty your powder. All you do is just pop this off and then dump them. Most powder throwers are like this. Lyman has a really cool one where it's like a little detent ball system. You unscrew it, you can pop it off. Anyway, this one's obviously a little chintzy, but that's kind of nice. This one's a little bit of a procedure, but I'll get into the cons of that in a sec. So yeah, for the cons of this, is not really, this is kind of nitpicking. You're going to need a separate scale, whether it's a beam scale or an electronic scale of some sort. You're also going to need maybe a powder trickler if to trickle up charges if you want to get a little bit more precise. Of course, as well, it's not as consistent with stick powders. So for the Chargemaster Lite pros, it's all in one. It's a powder thrower, a trickler, a scale, all in one pretty compact unit. It's not very big. You just type in your charge, punch in a number, you're good to go. You don't have to dial anything up or down. It's going to charge and try to hit the target that you punch in. The cons of this is definitely the price, especially in comparison to this in particular, or even other drum style powder measures, really. It's not cheap. It's $300 street price. I've noticed it has a tendency to overcharge from time to time, and that's with ball or stick powders. And that's kind of annoying. It's also slower to use. It will throw its mass charge out, it'll go at a faster speed, and then it'll start trickling up. With this, hold a case up, done. That's how fast it throws a charge. This one's a little bit longer for sure. And of course, that changes though if you decide, again, to manually trickle. So the speed might not be that big of a con if you're throwing your mass charge in one of these and manually trickling. In that case, this is probably a little bit faster. Yeah, the other con, again, is that this overcharged a little bit. It overcharges quite often. I don't know if, I think that's a pretty common problem with these. It's just part of the design. The Lite overcharged 7 times with IMR 3031. And with StaBALL, it didn't overcharge at all. And oddly enough, I did have a few undercharges with each powder. And the cool thing is, if it under overcharges, it will tell you on the screen. It's pretty obvious. And that's the nice thing. It acts as a double check for you right there on the fly. So you can be pretty confident that your powder throw is in a relatively accurate range. Versus this one, if it drifts off too much, and if you're not consistently checking it as you really should be, you're not going to know. So ideally, you do not throw 50 charges all in one without checking it after you set it up. You'll check every 10, 15 charges or so, put it on a scale. Okay, that's good. Keep going. And if not, figure out what happened. So that's the cons of this. So at the end of the day, could I personally shoot the difference? Probably not. But granted, my skill set isn't the best. I'm actually lacking some trigger time, honestly. I haven't shot in a while consistently. Thanks to the enormous rise in components and shortages we had, I kind of stopped the hobby really when that whole thing hit, which was stupid. But anyways, I'm out of practice. And another experienced shooter, they might be able to shoot the difference. And obviously, if you're doing something extreme long range, that will make a difference. But if you're shooting extreme long range, you probably are not watching this. And if you are, hey, cool, welcome. But you probably are not using either of these. You're probably using something a lot nicer, probably more in the lines of a scale similar to this one with an auto trickler or something. So anyway, that's all I have. Let me know what you think of this, if this was useful at all to you, if this is kind of a like, well, no shit moment for you. Like you knew this already, you expected it. Maybe you've done this yourself. Let me know what you guys use as well. Do you use a electronic powder measure like the RCBS one or any of the others? Or do you use a drum? Or do you use both? Kind of like me, you go on the mood. You depend what you're doing and just go with one or the other. No preference necessarily for one or the other. Yeah, and let me know which one you guys have and what your experiences are. Let me know also if you're going to get a fancy scale like this and which one you're looking at. If so, it's definitely confidence inspiring, that's for sure, seeing how accurate these things are. Anyway, I hope you found this useful. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a thumbs up or thumbs down if you disliked it. That's cool too. Not sure when I'll make another video. Hopefully I can provide more content like this because I thought this was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. So again, I'm never sure when I'll upload next, but until then, I will see you all later.